Hi, Chris here. In this video I want to talk about my journey through learning all the modalities within natural healing, whether that's nutrition, whether that's alternative therapies, whether that's energy medicine and energy healing, which I do here at Truly Holistic now, is my main component of healing now. And I just want to talk about how I got started and the journey to this point. Where I'm still continuing to learn because I don't see myself as an authority in any subject whatsoever. I'm a student wanting to learn more and more to become more awakened within an energy spiritual element, as well as live a very long healthy life. So where I got started was essentially in my early teens, so it goes back quite a while. And I was quite a healthy child up to the point of probably when I was about 11 or 12, and then got glandular fever, so essentially a viral illness, which kids get hit by glandular fever. Is essentially you just need time for the body to get over it. That's the medical establishment anyway, is ability to treat that particular illness. And but I wasn't myself after I'd been hit with glandular fever. I wasn't this vibrant young child anymore, I was a high vulnerability of getting other viruses and viral illnesses, sinusitis, flus, colds, and so on. From that point onwards, so my journey essentially started where I went to particular people that were saying that maybe you needed to change your diet. Maybe it was gluten that was causing issues. Maybe you needed to be gluten-free and yeast-free. So all of a sudden I was learning this whole thing about not eating bread and not eating things that contained gluten. So like barley, wheat, all the other grains that have gluten in them, essentially. So it was such a big eye-opener, for a young 12, 13-year-old to all of a sudden think about removing all these things out of the diet and to learn to go gluten-free. And at that point, there wasn't the products like we have today, where it's a lot easier to go gluten-free these days. But back then it was, eating bread that was essentially like a brick. It was hard. You could only essentially use it as toast, and even then it wasn't that great. And really having to change my diet to kind of accommodate not having to eat gluten or wheat, because you realise that majority of things within our diet has wheat or gluten in it. Even the things you wouldn't think would have it in it did have it in it. So all of a sudden I had to learn to look at all the ingredient lists of everything I bought within the supermarkets, or at that point what my parents were buying me. So it wasn't just an experience for myself, it was an experience for my, especially my mother as well, buying all these products for me. And I know what parents out there have to do for their children when they're having to read all these labels and learn about what we're actually being fed. And you get to the realisation that, hey, we're actually being fed a lot of rubbish and a lot of people aren't aware of it. And then also the next step was learning about additives within the food industry, in particular flavour enhancers, or what I like to call MSG, monosodium glutamate. So I had to obviously learn about monosodium glutamate, and I learned that it didn't just come on the food label as MSG or monosodium glutamate. They actually have a number of names that they hide it in, such as yeast extract. Yeast extract's a big one. So you'll see a lot of products saying, oh no, MSG, but there'll be yeast extract in the ingredients list. Well, yeast extract has a form of monosodium glutamate or flavour enhancers within yeast extract. So they get away with it by labelling under that. So a great book that I still have was Battling the MSG Myth. And this is a great book which had a whole lot of recipes and ways of making the foods that you had to give away because it had these flavour enhancers in and still make some really nice food. So it was learning how to make food from scratch again. And there's a number of labels as well as yeast extract, all the numbers as well. I think it's like 621 to about 637, something like that. All those numbers are all flavour enhancers and have monosodium glutamate in it, and other ingredients. So Google that up if you want to look that up, and realise that my headaches and my migraines that I was getting at that time were all due to MSG and flavour enhancers. And when I removed that in my diet, the number of headaches that I was getting and migraines were getting radically reduced. So I do challenge people out there that say, no, that's fine, it's within the food, it's not killing us, da 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 da. Well, you remove it out of your diet and see how well you feel after you remove it out of the diet. And I tell you, a majority of people that would do that would feel remarkably better, and realise that a lot of the sluggishness, the low in energy, the headaches, and just feeling lethargic was down to monosodium glutamate and these flavour enhancers that were added to the food supply. I also learnt about, obviously, preservatives and all these other things, artificial flavours, artificial colours, all these other things that have been added to our food supply just to make a food last longer, so therefore it makes more money for the food company, as well as a number of other things that are not beneficial to the human body. So I learned about gluten-free, learned about yeast-free, learned about what was in my foods, in the food supply, and learning to read the ingredients list, not the macronutrients, how much carbohydrates in this, how much proteins in this, how much fats in this, how much sodium's in it, how much calcium in it. No, I learned about what every ingredient meant. Even if they had a chemical name, I had to find out what that was. So this took a long time to do, and you become an expert in what you're actually putting into your temple, which is your human body. Now the next thing after that was realizing that I could heal myself first, and then heal other person's problems just through nutrition alone. So I learned about superfoods, people like David Wolfe, and so many other people that were really into superfoods. So learning about cacao, that cacao is a completely different animal to processed chocolate. Processed chocolate is in a form, they've made it more towards like a candy bar, where actually at the real core of what chocolate is, the cacao bean, was an incredibly healing substance, especially with increasing our vibrational frequency in our diet too. Spiritually, making us spiritually aware as well, which I've found out within this amazing substance, as well as goji berries, as well as aloe vera, as well as bee pollen and honey and propolis within bee products, and raw jelly within bee products, spirulina, chlorella, all the algae products, seaweeds, and acai berry, and all the camu berry, and all these other berries, exotic berries. And a lot of these products are superfoods because they have all the minerals in it, all the micronutrients in it. They have almost minerals within it, and that's because they come from places that a lot of times exotic places, because the soil still had all these micronutrients in it. Because the way that we are creating our food supply today with agriculture is the topsoils are becoming depleted with micronutrients. And then it's just being fertilized with NPK, 3 minerals. A body can work to a certain degree on NPK, but it will never be vital. And if you're wanting to live a long life without any health problems, then you have to be vital. You have to have all those minerals in your food supply, and it has to be in the soil. So I learned about that. I learned about herbalism. That essentially all pharmaceutical drugs came from herbs, wild plants. And that's what herbs are, wild plants. So you can go to the degree of parsley or some of the herbs that we put within our diet. They are at the core wild plants. And you go even further, you go into medicinal mushrooms, and you go into all these echinacea, and you get into all the plants that were high in silica in them, like stinging nettles, horsetail, which is really, really high. That's been around since the dinosaurs' time. So, and all the other things that are, all of a sudden you're getting your medicine from herbs and from superfoods instead of having to go to a doctor and get a prescription for a drug. And a drug just takes one extract, one particular compound within those natural foods, and therefore they make it into a drug. But alongside that drug you're getting side effects because it's not a clever way of doing it. You're just taking one extract of that particular plant out. Well, the plant has all those other compounds and chemicals around it to make it a whole being. And therefore, when you take, say, a herb in its own way, in its own natural form, there's hardly any side effects whatsoever because you're using the whole food. But when you're using a drug, then you're just using an extract of that, or the compound of that really minute compound, which is very beneficial when you look at the minute compound, but it's also affecting other chemical pathways within the body, which could be causing unwanted side effects. Also, learning that drinking the right water, and water is very vital to the human body because we're mainly made up of water, and that drinking structured water is the key to being hydrated, because even you could be drinking as much water as possible, because we get told we need to drink 8 glasses of water. It's always about the quantity. What about the quality of the water? And the quality of water, I found, was vital to us being hydrated at a cellular level, and that all came down to the structure of the water. It's like spring water, getting it from nature, because nature knows how to remove all compounds that shouldn't be in the water and rehydrate the water because it restructures the water. Okay? And I've obviously found that changing the frequency, using energy within the water, structures the water as well. The next thing was obviously learning that, hey, I was taught something as a child that, if you're unwell, you go and see your doctor. And now realizing that, hey, doctors weren't helping me, pharmaceuticals weren't helping me. I had to do it all on my own. I had to relearn everything, and relearn that if I eat right, and if I start to get all these minerals that the body requires, then all of a sudden I'm well. I don't have to rely on a doctor. I don't have to rely on taking a drug anymore. I had to relearn what we should have learned in the first place. So therefore I learned that there was a lot of corruption within the world we live in, whether that's our medical system, whether that's our government or our politicians or our presidents or prime ministers, or whether that's just mainstream media, the way they've been programming us to think in a certain way, that a lot of this information that can empower us and teach us to be our own nutritionists, our own energy healers, our own doctor, wasn't being taught to us. That we were being given another side of things that was depowering ourselves and actually giving our responsibility to other people like doctors to heal us. Now the next thing was, obviously I went to alternative practitioners for health problems. Like I've had issues with my spine in the past, and issues with my spine and my neck. And so I went to chiropractors, I've been to acupuncturists, I went to Bowen therapists, I went to osteopaths, I've been to people that do homeopathy remedies. So I got to learn about every component of the alternative health, even though I don't know why it's called alternative health, because all these health modalities were here first before our current modern medicine system was here. So it was the original form of healing, an original form of medicine. And another part of that I learnt was energy medicine. So during this time of obviously learning through healing and all these modalities, I learnt about obviously structure in the water through a book, Living Energies. This is all about the work of Victor Schauberger, He was all about structuring water again using vortexing the water. He looked at how nature produced energy. Okay, this is all free energy. And that's why a lot of the times we aren't learning this when we were kids in our history classes, because people like Victor Schellberger and people like Nikola Tesla was teaching us how to get free energy. And we live in a reality now where we pay for our energy. So therefore, why would they want us to know that information? So hence, that's why we don't learn that. Again, the corruption within our mainstream everything, essentially. I learnt within changing my nutrition, I went to a vegan diet, I went vegetarian diet, I've done more of a paleo diet. I've looked at all these different diets and read numerous books about them, whether it was nutrition and physical degeneration, how our diet was disrupting and ruining the way our body, and especially our skeletal system and our teeth, were being highly affected by this. Our arch of our jaws were shrinking, our skeletal structure was shrinking because of our diet. Great book, The Vegetarian Myth, was a great eye-opener for when I was just doing mainly plant medicine and I was just into veganism and vegetarianism. Really opened my eyes to the fact that for a long time now we've actually, part of our awakening spiritually has also been to do with animal foods and animal substances as well. I learned about longevity through people like Peter Ragnar, how long do you choose to live, with breaking down the system of, again, programming the way that we look at the way we age, that time itself is actually something that's been created, and that we kind of look at time as being toxic to the way we age. No, it's actually toxicity within, whether that's diet, within what we're drinking, what the air that we're breathing, and also deficiency, not getting enough minerals, as I've spoken about earlier in this video, is what breaks our body down, what we call aging. Learning about telomeres and stem cells that create mortality or an ability for us to live 120 years or longer. Also, learning the ability of, this is how I got into energy medicine originally, was earthing. This is a great book about when we touch the surface of the earth with our bare feet. We've got all these nerve endings on the bottom of our feet for a reason. We suck all the negative ionization off the surface of the earth, the crust of the earth, which is getting hit numerous times every day around the world by lightning. And this is energy medicine, because we absorb these negative ions into our body, and it just removes all inflammation in the body, because inflammation causes every health condition or every disease that is known to man, because we're highly inflamed because of what we eat, what we drink, the way we think, the air we breathe, and being disconnected from nature, and especially being disconnected from touching the earth with our bare skin. And I learnt that obviously if we can get free energy, our body gets absorbed by all these negative ions when we touch the earth with our bare feet. And all these great products that have come out because of the earthing phenomenon, like bed sheets that allow you to be connected to the earth, like you'll be lying on bare surface of the earth, and you'll be absorbing all these negative ions to remove all inflammation out of the body. And then I thought, well, okay, maybe the world's a bit more electrical, okay, in the nature of the whole universe. And therefore, all of a sudden, that awakened me to energy medicine. So all of a sudden, I went to, my history is that my grandmother was a colour therapist, and so she used colours to treat illness, whether that was bacterial infections, viral infections. And as a kid, I used to go to my grandmother, and she'd have this whalebone stick, which was like a divining stick, and she could check where your neck or back was out of alignment. And then my granddad would give me like a chiropractic adjustment and realign it, and then my nana would check again and say, yep, that's back in alignment. So all of a sudden she was using energy then with that stick and using a divining or a dowsing technique. And many years later, all of a sudden I thought, well, I went to an energy healer, a guy who didn't use anything, did divine or douse with, he was using his hands. And he checked my neck and back, and he'd realign my neck and back without having to touch me at all through physical contact, through just energy itself. And it got to the point where I could feel that straight away. I could feel a change. And he mentioned to me that I must be quite sensitive to it. Because a lot of people, it takes hours or the next day to feel the effect. But I was feeling it within seconds or minutes. So all of a sudden I thought, maybe I should look into this. Maybe I could do that. So all of a sudden I got into my grandmother's old stuff, the colour therapy stuff. And we'd lost her whalebone stick, because it was quite old, and all of a sudden I thought maybe I should look into, dowsing sticks or divining sticks or maybe pendulums. So all of a sudden I got started on copper divining rods and learning how to use them, and that took probably a week or two to learn that. And at that point I all of a sudden thought, okay, well, I can learn how to do yes and no with intention, asking a question whether someone's got a vertebrae out or whether they've got an infection. And then all of a sudden I learnt to obviously use that to pick out colours to use, and using it on a copper coil to treat people. And I could treat people from distance this way, as long as I had their photo or their name written down on a piece of paper with a lead pencil by them, which would give me their vibrational unique frequency, which I was able to tap in and heal. And then obviously after a wee while, all of a sudden after using the divining rods for a wee while, I learnt to use a pendulum, which only took me a day or two to just adjust from the rods to the pendulum. And all of a sudden I bought a set of pendulum charts. I think they were Dale Olson pendulum charts, which was about 50 pendulum charts on it. And then I started treating people using using energy, just using my energy rods, or using the coil with the colours. And then all of a sudden I found another great system, a true holistic system, where the charts were a lot more extensive. And these are the charts that I use currently today, and if you go to my YouTube account, you'll see a video about the charts itself, and also some energy tools, which I've got here, which also I've got videos about the tools I use now. And these are a lot stronger because they're mainly pyramid energy tools, and we know that with pyramids they're an amplifier of energy, and they were able to amplify this energy to such a strong ability that I was able to check and treat people on that within that healing session straight away, and they'd be able to walk out the door feeling a lot better within an hour. We'd be able to find all these problems that are causing issues within the physical body, not only the physical body, but I learnt to find out about the causal body and etheric body and all the different areas of the aura and the chakra system, and went to such a depth where this system now looks at anything possible. Where a lot of people would think, well, sci-fi issues, like extraterrestrials or entities. Well, I've found within the system that majority of health problems are caused by these things at the core. So I'm clearing all these things out, and people are feeling a difference. So now I've got a business called Truly Holistic, where I'm using these dowsing charts now and using these energy tools to alleviate and remove health problems for people. And that's where I am today, and it's been one heck of a journey so far, and a lot more to learn. Thanks for watching the video. Cheers.